at some point I started to see this, like in the distance of this space, this like little flickering light, white light. And it was really tiny, like a pinpoint, like a star really far away. But it started to like ebb a bit like this, and it started to get a little bit bigger and a little bit closer and a little bit bigger and a little bit closer. But it took like a really long time. And I was just watching it and I didn't have feelings about it. I was just like, okay. Um, and then even before it was even really close or any bigger, much bigger, it exploded. Everything just like went white. And it was like I exploded. Like oh, even now, like I feel that feeling like I didn't, if there was any fragment of me as an individual in that scene with the blackness, as soon as it went white, that was gone.
I'm so pleased to have Becc Sahasrara with us today. Becc, thank you so much for being my guest. It is so wonderful to be able to have this opportunity to speak with you about your near-death experience.
Hi, yes, lovely to be here. Hi, everybody watching. Thanks for having me.
You had a near-death experience and wanted to come and share that with my audience today. Tell me what happened and how did you nearly die?
When I was growing up, I was in a situation where it was very abusive and traumatic. I grew up in a cult environment. Um, so I had three NDEs during the course of that time, um, until I freed myself when I was around 18. So they were always to do with violence, basically, and abuse. The first one that I had was when I was approximately seven-ish, and my body, I was being abused and hurt, and I guess at some point my body just wasn't okay. um and then I popped out of my body. I was used to going out of body because I'd always had spiritual and psychic experiences, but when I popped out this time, I kind of knew that it was different, and I felt like something had happened. And this was my 7-year-old mind, so I was like, oh, what's going on, and I was looking at my body in that point. It's all sort of like standing over here, and my spirit guides were with me, these light beings who I was familiar with because they'd been around me during this time. um, but I also, had an immediate knowing that I was more connected with them and that we were more in the same place or the same room almost than ever before. um, and they gave me a feeling of like everything's okay, and they were familiar. And I was just standing there for a little bit, just wondering what's happened. But I felt fine. I felt like I wasn't scared. There wasn't fear. I was just like kind of almost neutral and just curious. Um, and then that went on for a minute. And then it was like the scene changed, and I was then above my body again with my primary male and female spirit guides with me. But I was above now, and now they were standing in front of me. And my body was still like, it seemed like down below people were just like freaking out and trying to figure out what was going on. Um, but it did, yeah, it didn't bother me at all. And I was up there above, and I also had an awareness of like, um, almost like family or like this grandmother spirit vibe. Was like, I couldn't see them, but it felt like I could feel it. I felt like they were like over there. Um, as an adult now, I think that that was like, how people talk. A lot of people watching might have heard people talk about when they cross over, they're greeted by loved ones. I think that maybe if I was to fully cross over, that's why they were there, to waiting for me almost. Um, and at this point, my guides were sitting in front of me, and without words, just telepathically, he said, "Do you want to go back?" And he said, and there was a real, again, without words, just a feeling and a knowing of what he was saying. And it was like, you don't have to go back. Um, and there was also an impression that, like, if I did choose to go back, it was going to continue to be very intense and very difficult life experience. Um, but I remember being like, of course I'm going back. Like, of course. And because I had this, the feeling inside of me was like the knowing of my intention and the reason that I wanted to be on earth was in, I remember thinking, like, of course I'm going back because I need to help everyone remember love. I need them, that's what I'm doing here. And there was this energy, and I said to my guide, I can do it. Like, I can do it. And they were like, okay. And then it's like as soon as I made that choice, instantly popped back into the earth, everything, and like that whole scene went away, and I was just, coming out of unconsciousness and back in that violent scenario. Um, yeah, so that was the first one, and then the second one was different, um, and a lot sort of simpler, I guess. Again, it was a moment of trauma, and I guess I left my body. I was actually drowning, and I basically, when I was shifted into that state of unconsciousness or near death, I went into a feeling, like an incredible feeling and place, like that was all white. It was just white. It was like nothing, but it was everything. It was all white. And it was really like such a big feeling. And I also didn't have like much of a concept of I as like a person. Like I was just awareness. I didn't have, like in that first one, I was sort of had like an astral body, I guess, in my memory of it. In this one, I was just like experiencing it. And this peace energy was so velvety and incredibly beautiful, and like just felt like a song, and it felt like home, and it was so amazing. And I was just part of that for, I don't know. But then in this particular incident, I'm guessing that I popped back into consciousness. I'm guessing I was coming in and out because it was like I was there for a minute, or a minute, I don't know how much time went by, but then I would be popped back into the trauma situation, and then I would go back into the peace like place instantly again. And that happened like, I don't know, quite a few times. And that was really jarring, obviously, spiritually, like, and even, as I was processing my trauma and stuff, that was something that really affected me. Um, because in that scenario, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going back. It was like when I would pop back into the trauma, there was a real feeling of like, take me back to that place, and a yearning to cross and to die, and wanting to surrender and not being able to. That was really challenging for me and my soul. But when I was in the peace, it was really beautiful. And in my healing journey, I had to go back to that trauma memory. As anyone who's done trauma work may know, that sometimes you have to go back to the thing that you couldn't handle at the time with presence and love. And I learned to cultivate that essence of peace, that tone of energy inside of myself, and that healed that traumatized part of me, which was really beautiful because I lived with a longing of like, I want to go home, this feeling of like, I just want peace, I want to go home. And it was so strong, but it was actually that, from that experience, a trauma response. And it was so beautiful to be able to heal that and be able to saturate. My spirit guides taught me how to saturate myself in that peace energy in my body, and know and learn that peace is inside of all of us. The last one, again, moment of trauma. Uh, this was the one where I really lost concept of individuality and of I. Even like having to put it into language kind of diminishes the experience. But it's like, if anyone's ever had an ego death, if you were near death, or if you were on, psychedelics or something, how the words can get. But in this one, I left my body, and I was just in this void space, and it was blackness, and it was like being out, if you were out in the back of the universe. Because we can think, I like to reference space because we know that space is emptiness, it is silent and incredibly still. The stillness is so incredible, and there's no light. And I was just like floating there, except I didn't have a body or anything, and I barely had a concept of I. I was like in it. But it wasn't scary or anything. It was really, again, like neutral and very, very peaceful. Like I'll never forget the the stillness of it, and the sound of silence from that was amazing. Like even thinking about it now, I'm like, oh, that feels so good. And I don't know, I was just there. And that's where it's hard to say words, but I was there. And then eventually at some point, time doesn't exist, but I don't know. At some point, I started to see this, like in the distance of this space, this like little flickering light, white light. And it was really tiny, like a pinpoint, like a star really far away. But it started to like ebb a bit like this, and it started to get a little bit bigger and a little bit closer, and a little bit bigger and a little bit closer. But it took like a really long time, and I was just watching it, and I didn't have feelings about it. I was just like, okay. Um, and then even before it was even really close or any bigger, much bigger, it exploded. Everything just like went white, and it was like I exploded. Like I, oh, even now, like I feel that feeling. Like I didn't, if there was any fragment of me as an individual in that scene with the blackness, as soon as it went white, that was gone. And I just was the whiteness and the space. And it was like a supernova, if I was to metaphor it. Um, when it really felt to me like when a star is born, or when a star, I can't remember if it's when a star is born or when they die, but there's an explosion. Um, and then I was just in that whiteness, and I was just nothing and everything, um, and complete. And I would say it felt like being like I was in source or God energy. I was that, like I had melded into it. Um, yeah, and then that's the last thing I recall before I guess I went back to my body again, popped back in, or came to, or whatever. Um, but again, that one was interesting and beautiful because later again when I was processing it in my healing, and I had to go back to, the violence before to heal my nervous system, and then kind of relived that experience. I understood from my spirit guides, and I had more clarity that the when I died in that way at that time, I kind of fragmented or lost like a piece of my soul, a piece of my essence, which is what trauma can do for us, to create fragmentation. And that light that was coming closer and closer was, I had to go back into the God force to like fully go more than the other ones, had to go fully into this God light to be replenished and retrieve that piece of my life force. Um, and then in therapy, when I was dealing with this, like the nervous system, bodily sensations of the violence, and then you give it presence and it slowly dissolves. But in therapy, the white light ebbing again, it like came into me. And that was me, fully healing and fully having this integration of that, lost part of my soul light. So, yeah, it was amazing. And then, yeah, that was the last one. And then, I thankfully I escaped that situation. And here I am.
Thank goodness that you were able to escape. When you came back in this last one, did you
Mhm.
remember what had happened right away? Or did you think, did I just die? Or what were your thoughts about the experience when you first came back?
When I first came, like literally when I first came back to my body, I was like not thinking about it at all because I was in fight or flight because I had people hurting me. So I was just back to dealing with that, where you're just, I was probably screaming or something, you know. I didn't have any thoughts about it. And, you know, the violence continued and you just kind of fragment. I lived with dissociative identity disorder for a long time because of that experience. And part of that disorder is that it also keeps memories and things in the unconscious or dissociated away from you. So there's also the chance that, like, I came back and then maybe a different personality part came out to cope with the situation and fight. And I probably didn't think about it for a long time. Um, I don't know, because that would have created another fragmented part of myself that probably would have gotten suppressed for the protection of my psyche. But yeah, immediately I was just like, you know, in the violence.
You said that you were everything all at once in this whiteness.
Mm.
Was there other things? What were you when you say everything?
Oh, well, that's just me attempting to attempting to like describe God. like like I don't know. There wasn't other things. No, like I it was just the everythingness of life that we all are, if that makes sense.
I struggle to grasp that concept because I feel like human words or human concepts even can't wrap around that, how we can be everything. When we think of a thing as in something outside of us. So,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
understand kind of like what you mean, the concept, I think, but I don't understand it intellectually, I think.
Yeah, and I think that you know, part of that is that we operate here with an egoic identity, that an individuality that is useful for navigating this dimension, and it wouldn't be useful to walk around in like, you know, these states you wouldn't be able to navigate life. Um, but you know, I would invite you and people to maybe think about if there's ever been a time where you felt really incredibly connected to somebody, or like your child, or like, you know, some moment that happened in nature, or if you anyone's had experience like that where, again, it's not the everythingness, but if you felt deeply connected and you felt, oh my gosh, like this person is like a part of me, or and love, and or if you've ever felt really at home in a moment or with somebody, it's kind of like that. um and you know, when we're doing that, we are in the recognition of our oneness. Like that's why we feel that way, you know. So even if you consciously can't like word it, everybody's touched it.
I like that you describe it like that because I can relate to that. That makes good sense to me
Yes.
because I've
Yeah.
definitely felt that before. You said that your guides were there. Did they feel familiar to you when you met them?
Yeah. So it was the first one where my guides felt quite present, and I mean they're always there, but yeah. Um yes, I knew them, and I instantly had a sense of home with them. I mean, when you're seven, you're not thinking like, oh, it's my spirit guides. Like, I didn't know that. They were to me like these like friends, like parent people that were just like always there. And um, I am uniquely to me that I've also been psychic, very, very clear seeing and knowing and all the clairs, and can see and feel and sense spirit and hear it since I was, as long as I can remember, like since I was born. So they were always there through their experience with me. And so I definitely knew those primary, meaning like the ones that attend to you most, my primary guides. But again, when I was seven, like they're just like my friends that are there and help me sometimes, or, you know, answer my questions or stuff like that.
They taught you a way to feel the deep peace, to keep that integrated within yourself. Is that something that you can share how to do, or is that something anyone can do?
So everybody has access within yourself to your higher self, to your soul, spirit, God within you. And spirit guides are an aspect of that higher consciousness of you. Um, and they are here to be your mentors if you choose to develop yourself intuitively and develop some psychic capacity. They can teach you and your soul in your own unique way how to do something like that, how to bring in a frequency of peace or love. That's something that I teach in my work today. All of this made me who I am today, where I teach people how to merge with their higher self and do that dance of healing through bringing in the correct energy and frequencies. Um, and I want to say that, we're all doing it when you heal something. Whether you are looking at it through an intuitive lens, or you're just in therapy, or you're just journaling or feeling, whenever you bring presence to something, you're bringing the opposite energy to it. So if you are really present with your grief and you really bring love and stillness and allowing and surrender and presence to that, eventually grief turns into joy. Like that clears out, and the opposite vibration that's been suppressed can come out. Fear turns into love. Peace comes from, you know we often are pushed into developing something like peace, or the opposite, when our life is really chaotic and you have that moment of like, oh my God, I have to heal. And then you do it because it's inside of you already.
Outside of being traumatized in this physical world, was there
Yeah.
something that was trying, someone or something, or maybe yourself even, trying to wake you up to your true purpose?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, uh, I'm not sure that waking up to it is the right word, but more that when you go through those experiences, your difficult times in life, and if you're able to heal them, like I did, it will transform into your unique light and your unique purpose. Yes. So, and my guides, they did, you know, and just my own like resilience and will. Um, I was supported to keep coming back. And as you said, be able to, they taught me how to like hide in my energy and my heart and like different things like this to just survive. Um, and all of it, my resilience and their support and all the angelic support that I had was so that I could fulfill the purpose of helping people to remember love and to learn how to do this process I was describing earlier of healing yourself through your own life force or higher self connection. Um, that the word for that is alchemy, where you're changing something from water to wine, from fear to love. Healing is alchemy. So my purpose was to go through something, very significant, so that I would be put in that position to learn exactly how to mend yourself on an energetic level, spiritually, physically, and psychologically. And it led to weaving the higher self and embodiment of the spirit, which is what we're all here to do. And I learned a very direct way to do it so that I could help people. And like my 7-year-old self said, like helping people remember love. And that is to say, to remember who and what we are beyond our mind and trauma and everything.
At what point after your near death experiences did you realize this was your calling?
When I was in my 20s ish, I had just come out of the situation a bit. I didn't fully get free until I was like 26, but around my 20s, I just knew that I wanted to help people, and I just had this feeling like I want to help people. Obviously, I was dealing with a lot. I was dealing with a lot of mental health repercussions. Um, so I couldn't remember all the near death. I couldn't remember all the trauma because dissociative identity disorder, which is previously known as multiple personality disorder, um, it protects your brain from remembering traumatic experiences that are too overwhelming for you to currently connect to until you're ready to heal. So I just had a feeling that I was here to help and that I wanted to help. And in my 20s, I started to get more into self, I guess, more concentrated working on my psychic abilities. Like I started reading books and, training up, and I started listening to my spirit guides a bit better and doing what they told me to do. And then, like, yeah, I think around then I realized, like, okay, like, this is what I'm here to do.
When you say love, what exactly do you mean? Because I feel like there's a lot of different aspects or facets of love or even definitions of love. So, what kind of love is it that you want people to remember?
The invitation to remember love is really to remember this core essence of what you are, which is that it's the God source or source, universe, spirit, um, love, soul of life, that people talk about. It's not romantic love. It's not sort of human relationship love. Um, it could be akin to the love that you hold if you're doing it well, coming into love for yourself. Um, it's a really it's the heart of the universe, you know um and it's what we touch when we are able to have moments of being in connection with that love or presence or spirit that's inside of you. Like if you have had a deep meditation, or if watching your child play and you feel like love for them, but you've probably also had these like amazing love and you're like, what is this? Like that can be part of it. If you are looking in nature, nature holds a good picture of it. We can be in awe of nature because God is very clear and coherent in nature. Yeah, I think it's important to talk about death and to hear these stories of like someone's near death experience, and it's like, whoa, like this happens and that's amazing, and it can really help and really make you believe and trust in life. And when we receive these like messages and messengers of knowing and trusting that there's more and having that bigger perspective. And um I think it's really important to not be afraid of death, and to, like, our society, we have made it super weird compared to other cultures who like have full training and ritual, at least the older cultures around, you know, death. And there was a remembrance that it was a transition of the soul. And so when I share my NDEs, I just like to share with people that, as awesome and cool as it is, let yourself also think about, like, okay, how does this serve me in my everyday life? Like if I know that I am going to continue as life, perhaps in a different form, but that this is temporary, how does that change like the way that you live and the choices that you make right now, and the way that you operate in death? And um I think that these NDEs really show you that there's a full like process going on with death as well. And it's good to be prepared about it. It's good to learn about these things. And that's sort of really missing in our experience. But you can garner that piece if you make it more than just a story. But if you really take it in and really think about yourself in context of that, it's going to help you live your life better and make the most of life.
I love that message, and that you basically summed up why I even started this podcast, because I feel like
Ah,
death is such a taboo subject, and we can't we
mm,
can't have meaningful conversations about it in society because it's shunned. And so the result of that is when we lose a loved one, it's much more damaging and traumatic than it needs to be. Of course, it's never going to be easy to learn to lose a loved one, but if we opened up to the reality of what death truly is, then it'd be easier. It'd be easier to get through the grief. And not only that, but like you were saying, to live a better life. I want to help people live a better life, and you're helping to spread that message. And so that is just so meaningful. I think there's no better message out there than to help people overcome their fear of death. It helps in so many ways. So I want to thank you for the beautiful work that you do. And by sharing your experience, you are changing the world and helping people to live better lives.
Thank
Um,
you.
so thank you. Thank you very much for that. And you talked about how life is like this whole big process, or death is like a big process. Is life just preparation for the other side, getting ready to die?
Mm, I wouldn't say it's just that, but I would say it's definitely a part of it, because that's what when I say like it's really interesting, like because death is it is it isn't death, like it's more life. Like I promise you, when you guys die, like you're not gonna stop. Like it's just you're just gonna be like, what? It's gonna be different. Um, and and in yeah, and so life is so much, like life is so many things, but it is helpful to know this about death, and so to use your life as a place to so one of the life and death connection points is life is preparation, in that you're here to heal yourself and you're here to purify your soul, of like, that's why we have pain and duality and stuff, because the soul and the overall soul is, if you zoom out, is looking at like not just this life but looking at every incarnation that you have, and what's the next part of that step is like the death place, and like what is going to unfold for you when you have your death experience. A lot of it can depend on what is going on in your life, and how much you healed and how much consciousness and awareness you brought into your being. um, when we cross over, that's why you hear so many like different and contradictory, even like near death experiences, saying like it's like this, but they're like it's like this, and no, but I saw this and I saw Jesus, and so we're all Christians now, and and I went to hell and all these things. When you die, what that's happening because it is showing you that your death process is a reflection of you uniquely. Everybody is going to experience the things that like you haven't fully resolved, or the things that you did achieve, and that it's going to be reflected in the light or the darkness that you experience as your soul transitions out. The death transition is like a place of resolution. So that's why people get like a life review and stuff, like if you hear about that life review and stuff, because the soul is like unpacking and reformulating, um and then over a longer duration, preparing for another life. And so it's like clearing and it's doing all these things. And if you spend your life, for example, if someone spends their life completely unconscious and completely like in a really dark space, when they cross over, it is likely that they're going to be met with all the unresolved things that they didn't face in different forms, like just in an experience. And then people are like, oh, I'm in hell. There's always opportunity for, like, they're not stuck there. There's always opportunity and angels and stuff offering them like resolution, or, a path, but they have to like face, that's life is always, we have to face our stuff. Um, so the more light and awareness you can bring in your current life, the more peaceful your death process is going to be. Um, and also respecting others' death process as well. Like imagine if we all got this, and I have there was an animal that was put down here recently that I cared about, but I chose not to go to her. She was put like euthanized, but I chose not to go to her like moment and stuff while everyone else was holding space for her, because I was like, if I go there, I'm going to be bringing like this emotional baggage of like my sadness to her death process, and I don't want to do that. I want to, you know be only offer love. And I knew to do that because I know about this stuff. But like if I didn't, sometimes people die and we're just there like vomiting up all our stuff, and it's okay to feel, but it's like there's more going on. Yeah.
Hmm. That makes sense. So when my dad died, he died in home hospice and he
Mm.
waited to be alone to die. Now I
Mm.
wonder if that's why, because we were contributing too much to his death process. That's
Yeah.
interesting that you say that.
Yeah, there could be a lot of reasons, like maybe his guides, like for the next dimension, it was going to be better that way or something. Lots of reasons, but yes, it could be. And you hear of people in like that situation, like they're holding on for you, or and then when like in like some example, if like the loved one finally is like, okay, like you can go, like they find that acceptance, then often they'll die like right in front of them in that moment when they make that choice, because there's this human part of like the person that's crossing over that is like still there's got that attachment and care and everything. And yeah, like if if there was a lot of emotional energy in the room and stuff like that, it's just on a very technical level, it's just not super helpful to the experience. It doesn't mean that like it's going to stop. If that has happened for anyone watching, it's that you didn't damage it or stop anyone from going to heaven or anything crazy like that, but it's just an offering of your peaceful energy and giving a blessing as they leave with your peace and your love versus your grief, if you can.
You said something about getting ready for another life.
Mm.
So tell me about this other life. Do we always come to Earth, or do we only come to Earth once? What is this other life?
Well, um, uh, you could come to Earth once, or you could come to Earth a billion times, and you could come as a human, or again, it's unique to the individual soul and their soul's journey and decisions about their journey. Um, but we have other lives because we have multiple incarnations of this unique soul essence that you are. And it is kind of like on a string of energy and of lifetimes, I should say. And you go into the different lifetimes to provide more expansion and wholeness to the soul light so that you can be the lightest light that you possibly can be. And it goes on like a quite a big journey and a unique journey. So I can't say, for one person it's 5 lives or no lives or whatever. um and at some point, like, so yeah, that's to answer your question, like these are these different lifetimes, and at some point that soul string or soul being will feel in their own timing like there's a sense of completion with their incarnational journey, and they'll go back to that source place of the everythingness and the oneness that we all originate from, where it's like just one light, and be almost like, I guess, rewritten or reabsorbed, and then, you know, yeah, coming home to God. So yeah, we have a lot of lifetimes.
What would you say happens when we die? You got to kind of get a little glimpse, but what happens when we stay?
I know I sound repetitive, but again, it's going to be unique to the to the soul. When you die, it's a shedding of the body. It's not just a shedding of the body, I should say. It's a shedding of like this whole life experience. So when you cross, like you're gonna leave your body, because like I can't even say like, oh, for there'll be a minute when you're with your spiritual team, and then you'll be like in the whiteness, because that where you're gonna go and what's gonna happen is all different to the individual. Um, so I can only sort of speak in broader terms on it, I think. But the soul is going to have some kind of letting go of the body, letting go of that. So, for example, popping out and like being able to see your body for a minute, um, or if you're a really tortured soul, like not being able to leave the body for a while, because this is where there's a word called the wraith, where like people see ghosts and stuff. If someone's had it again, like a heavy life full of attachment, they may be the soul might be really attached to the body and they might hang around for a while. They will leave eventually because the like resolution process is inevitable. But how long it takes you to let go is how attached you are. So they're going to go through that, and then they're going to um this life review process thing is really like it's really happening because there's like an unwinding of the lifetime, and just like, if you go through an experience and you like, I need to journal about this, like I need to get it out and like, have like a narrative to it, make sense of it, create a sense of completion. That's kind of what's happening metaphysically with that. And you get learning in that just like you do in journaling. Oh, I like my metaphor. Um, um, yeah, and then you see some souls like they might be taken to a healing place if they had a super traumatic death, or it was quite shocking. They might just be bathed in a purifying light for a long time. Um, some souls they might just be met with an experience of like that hellish escape, which is really a reflection, just like our dreams, let's say, of your own pain. And there's going to be an invitation to meet with that and be able to endure what you didn't and kept pushing away in your life. Um, you might cross over and see family members. Uh, you might just go home to God. You might be met by um, higher spiritual beings, deities, like Buddha, Jesus, these like master beings, that high dimensional beings that kind of help and support humanity. They might be involved for you, your spirit guides. Um, and ultimately, you're coming home to a sense of peace for the soul. Whatever it takes for you to have that resolution and finish that journal entry is going to happen. And then there's going to be a time, some souls, they're like, it's a time of rest now, and they go to like a heaven experience. Um, some, and what heaven looks like would be different. Some souls might just be instantly going to the next incarnation because that was right for them.
Why do you think there's so many people on a spiritual journey recently, and more and more experiences happening, and more people trying to help others to realize their true being? Is there something happening?
Yeah, we are in a time of, everybody's probably heard this word, ascension, um, which means that the planet and humanity's consciousness, basically just this part of the universe, is going through an ascension, so an increase in consciousness and frequency and vibration. Um, and so it, like metaphysically, that does things. So like, for example, there's like higher than the past dimensional rays of light that are being streamed down onto Mother Earth from different points in the stars in the universe right now, and the energy system that is sort of like bathing her in this higher light. And when we are hit with a higher frequency, we match that frequency. This is like law of attraction stuff. And um so it's purifying us, and it's bringing out that remembrance of spirit and of light. It also brings out the shadow, and like that's why collectively the world can also seem a bit dark right now as well, or not okay. But that's because like when you do a cleanse or something, all the crap has to come out, right? Yeah, so we're going through ascension, and it's a really amazing time to be here.
I like the way that you describe it, like a cleanse. You don't think about
Yeah,
it like that, but like a purification, where
yeah.
you're right, you have to get out the junk and the toxicity and all that. So you're obviously going to see that. And then when all that's cleared, there's going to be nothing but what's supposed to be there, the pure health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a
Mm.
great analogy. You're full of great analogies tonight.
Yeah, I think I'm doing well. Great.
I love it. If my viewers wanted to reach out to you back, how can they find you?
I have a YouTube channel, which is just my name, Becc Sahasrara. I'm sure we'll put the link somewhere for you guys. Um, my website is becksahasrara.com. My Facebook is just my name, Becc Sahasrara. So, or on Instagram, it's the Becc Sahasrara. Also, TikTok is the Becc Sahasrara. So you can DM me on Instagram, or you can go to my website and make contact there. So if you want to reach out, that's what I would suggest.
If you had one message to leave with the viewers, what would it be?
Oh, let me like tune into what wants to come through for all of us. Hang on. Okay. To know yourself is to see yourself and to not be afraid. To not be afraid. So I think that this spirit, that's my higher spirit guides, they're saying to you, like, when you hear all this stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, there's all this process stuff and the death process and da da da, don't be afraid because, like, it's you, you know, and just to trust. Yeah. And you have to see yourself to know yourself, and there's power in that.
Definitely. Very powerful. What a beautiful message. Thank
Mm.
you and your guides. I appreciate you,
Mm.
Beck, so much for all that you're doing. And thank you for being my guest.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.